A retirement plan includes planning for the good stuff and the bad.
That's why it's important to understand what to do when your spouse passes away.
We discuss the important steps that you may have to take right now on Retiring Today.
Welcome to Retiring Today. I'm here with Haley Gutschenritter and Loren Merkle. They're both certified financial planners. Loren is also a certified financial fiduciary and a retirement income certified professional. So today, guys, we're going to tackle one of those things that you guys talk to people about that's not the most fun part of the retirement plan, but once it's in place, it can really help people, ease a lot of anxiety and really help them as they move to and through retirement. So Loren, it's the loss of the spouse. You've been doing this for over 20 years. You've walked a lot of families through that. Why is it so important to have this checklist we're going to talk about today?
There's 6 components to the plan. One of the big components that isn't a lot of fun to talk about is the legacy plan of the overall retirement plan, and a part of that legacy plan is the succession piece. What happens when? It's not really if. At some point we're all going to pass away. And so what happens when your spouse passes away? What do you do next? One of the things that we have to go through every single year is we do have family members pass away. And so we are there to help the surviving spouse and help him or her through that succession process. But it always helps in such an emotionally charged time to have a plan of action in place prior to living that type of an event. And that's part of the reason that we've created the succession checklist, is to help some of our families and really all of you. When you go through this type of an event, it's nice to have that plan prepared in advance so you can just kind of check off the list. Okay, I've accomplished this in the midst of all these emotions and other things that you have to deal with when you lose a spouse.
And the other benefit to preparing this checklist is that you get to do it side by side with your spouse right now. So they're still here with you. You can go through this checklist, you can answer these questions, and it's going to aid you in moving forward through one of the most difficult times of your life.
Yeah, so let's tell them about the checklist. You can download a checklist. You can go to successionchecklist.com. We're going to go through the checklist today. Some of these are items you can prepare ahead of time. I'd say some of these are also items that when your spouse does pass, it can kind of help you get ready or work through that. I also know if you're working with the Merkle Retirement Planning team, we're going to help you with a lot of this stuff. So this checklist serves a lot of purposes, but I know that you've both seen this. You've both seen when a family doesn't have a plan in place, what it looks like, and you've also seen when a family does have a plan in place, how, again, there's a lot of grief involved, but how you can really aid them in that piece of this checklist.
Absolutely, and that's honestly why we feel so strongly about having a checklist put together, is because I've experienced the collateral damage of not having a succession plan in place. And it's not because I've lost a spouse. I've never lost a spouse before, but I have lost a parent. And so through that, I watched my mom lose a spouse and struggle financially and go through go through that turmoil. And so that's why I just feel like I know the repercussions of not having a plan in place. So if we can take the time now, do the planning now while your spouse is still alive, it will aid you in the long term.
Yeah, and Haley was instrumental. You were instrumental in putting the succession checklist together today, and we also presented it at a lunch and learn for the clients and the individuals and families that we work with. So we do feel really passionate about this. Loren, I know it was important to you that this be a part of the overall retirement plan.
Part of what we try to do with the overall planning is to make things simple. Make things easy. The checklist certainly does help with that. Each one of the 6 components, the decisions you make on each one of those will impact the other decisions. So when you lose a spouse, you have to make a ton of decisions, and there's a lot of other things flying in your face at that point in time that can be distracting. Simplicity is absolutely essential, which is why I think the checklist is very important as people go through these transitional phases in their life.
Yeah, and Loren, you keep mentioning the components. So we have 6 components that help guide every retirement plan. They're up on your screen right now. And what we've done with this checklist, Haley, is you took each one of those components and then you put kind of these spousal succession items underneath one of each of those components. So let's start first with that lifestyle piece. Let's just stay on the spousal succession portion. What should people be looking for and what decisions will they need to make there?
Absolutely. So what people should be looking for to do in this area is develop an emergency contact list. And the reason why is because you want to notify all your friends and family when a loved one passes away. But beyond that, you want to notify your professional network. So that's going to include your financial advisor, that's going to include your attorneys, that's going to include any life insurance agents that you use, or if your spouse was still working, their employers. So you want to notify your professional network because those are the people that are going to help you with all the decisions you have to make within that first 72-hour period. Those are the people that are going to help you make those decisions most confidently.
And then one thing that maybe people don't think about is that technology piece. So a lot of what we do now in our lives is online, and you guys have seen this with couples. One person may be in charge of paying XYZ bills, maybe another spouse is in charge of logging on for other things. So having some of those passwords and things together is really helpful for the surviving spouse.
Yeah, over our lifespan, we tend to accumulate a lot of critical information, and we accumulate a lot of usernames and a lot of passwords. And typically what we see is that one spouse is responsible for certain payments, maybe the mortgage payment, auto pay, credit cards. Another spouse may be responsible for filing the tax return, or they're set up online to file their tax return. So to make it easier on the surviving spouse, know those passwords, know how to get access to that critical information, because in that first year when your spouse does pass away, you will now be solely financially responsible for all of that. So if you do have auto pay set up, or if you do file your taxes online and you need a copy of that, know where that critical information is so that you can easily access it.
And sometimes one of the struggles that we see people go through is just tracking down all the different types of accounts, right? If you're not the one that's directly involved in all of the different accounts or technology, it might be really troublesome for you just to identify what accounts did you have. Did you have 3 different credit cards, 1 credit card? How many different investment accounts did you have? The Social Security logon information. There's so many different things we have to log on to. The password is just one component of that, right? What if we don't even know where these accounts are held? That presents challenges, and we do help people track down these types of accounts in these situations too. That's one of the things that people spend time on, unfortunately, where otherwise if they had this prepared, they wouldn't have to spend this time trying to find it. They can just spend their time trying to access it and then deciding what to do with all of that stuff when that event does happen.
And Haley, on the checklist that you put together, you put some interesting stuff about what the funeral home is going to need and what, again, maybe you should have together as part of this succession plan.
Yeah, so with the funeral home director, you will complete the death certificate with them and the medical examiner, and then they will file it on your behalf with the county. But also another tip is that you can actually pre-plan your funeral. And the reason why that's a benefit is because you don't want to leave it up to guesswork. Often what happens is your loved ones, they want to honor you in the best way possible. So they feel this amazing amount of pressure. And they often get swindled into going with the larger cost items, so they'll try to upsell you on a burial plot or things like that. And you don't want to leave that up to chance. It's your funeral, so plan it and take all the guesswork out of it so that you can alleviate the stress of your loved ones and prevent any family risks from happening.
And having a pre-planned funeral is one of the common questions we get, where maybe 10 years ago, that was not a question we would receive very often. But it is something that a lot of people are doing now, and there's certainly some advantages to that. But there's a lot of pre-planned services that are being offered, so make sure you weave through the different options that you have and you feel comfortable with those options that you select. But it can alleviate some of that stress for the survivors because they know you're going to get the funeral that you planned, that you wanted, and that's one less thing or a whole list of things that they don't have to worry about.
And you might need some information about your spouse that you might not have memorized or even maybe know about what their family, their social security number, some other stuff like that.
Yeah, so you can actually print a copy of a death certificate and just start pre-filling out some of those questions that they ask. One of those uncommon questions that you may not know is, what is your spouse's mother's maiden name? I mean, that's not always commonly known for your spouse, let alone if you didn't have a spouse. What about your children? Do they know the answer to that? Or whatever loved one would be completing or help completing that death certificate. So you can actually pre-fill it out, just save some time on the back end from researching those questions.
And you also talk in the checklist about canceling service. What does that all entail? So
canceling services is a good thing to be reminded of. I would have a list of all the services that you currently pay for because, for example, my husband has the Dollar Shave Club. I don't need that if he passes away, so I don't want to be paying this subscription that I no longer need. So write down the list of services that you pay for and then cancel the ones that your surviving spouse would no longer need.
Okay, some good information as we get started on going through this succession plan checklist or the spousal succession plan checklist. If you want to download the checklist, that website is on your screen right now. Maybe you want to download the checklist, maybe look at it and you have questions about it. You want more information on some things we've already touched or what we're going to touch on here in the next couple of segments. Here's a great opportunity. You can speak directly with a retirement planner. MerkleRetire.com, that's where you start, and then you can schedule a 15-minute complimentary retirement checkup call. We'll keep going through the checklist and how to put a plan in place when Retiring Today continues.
Women face a unique set of challenges as they travel to and through retirement. From investments and caretaking to increased longevity and healthcare expenses, women face it all. How do you manage these concerns and also fulfill your retirement dreams? Join us at Jasper Winery in Des Moines for a fun and informative evening on Thursday, November 3rd at 6:30 p.m. This special workshop is designed for women, taught by women. Register today at merkleplan.com.
Biking, boating, relaxation? What's your retirement vision? Learn how to take the money you've worked so hard to save and turn it into the retirement of your dreams during our Journey to Retirement workshop. Like getting ready for a trip, getting to and through retirement takes a roadmap. This workshop is the first step to planning your 20 or 30-year vacation. Go to retirewithmerkle.com to register for our Journey to Retirement workshop this week.
Welcome back to Retiring Today. We're going through our succession checklist here with Haley Gutschenritter and Loren Merkle. So preparing people for the loss of a spouse, some of the things you can do now to get ready for that as you're moving to and through retirement, and then some of the things you may have to encounter once your spouse passes. So it follows also the components of the retirement plan. So we went over the lifestyle piece. Let's go over income now. Haley, what are some important tips that people need for this?
Well, often a resource that gets overlooked is Social Security, and Social Security can account for anywhere between 20 to 35% of your income needs. And what many people don't know is that when your spouse passes away, you could be entitled to survivorship benefits. Now, there's different kinds of survivorship benefits, so it can get often convoluted, but in general, you do want to contact the Social Security Department because there's a lifetime lump sum death benefit of $255 once your spouse passes away. And then on top of that, you want to talk about your specific situation and see if you are entitled to a higher Social Security benefit.
I can't believe she said convoluted when it comes to Social Security, Loren. I'm
Yeah,
so shocked. It's such a simple process, just a couple of options, no big deal.
Yeah, no big deal at all.
Government makes it simple for us, right?
Very simple. I mean, just go to their website and you go through all the different paragraphs. You read one paragraph, you read another paragraph, and it feels like it contradicts each other. There's nothing really easy about Social Security, and especially when we're talking about survivorship benefits. Survivorship benefits is where Social Security really gets complicated because when your spouse passes, were you already taking Social Security? Was he or she already taking Social Security? Are you guys 10 years away from being eligible to take Social Security? Are you above age 70? I mean, there's all these different things matter is when it comes to what options do you have as a surviving spouse, just when we talk about Social Security alone.
Yeah, and electing Social Security, I know I'm kind of going backwards. We're talking about the end of life, but the beginning of Social Security is a whole process. And I know you walk people through that when they're electing for that first time. I'm assuming you also walk them through if they need help with these survivorship benefits or widow benefits as well.
Absolutely. If you're electing Social Security and you're a married couple, you have up to 81 different options when it comes down to electing Social Security. And then throw in your survivorship options on top of that. That's a lot of questions. So survivorship, one thing that is different between electing your primary benefit is that you could be entitled to survivorship benefits at the age of 60. Typically with Social Security, your first age of eligibility is age 62. So many people don't know that. And then you could also collect survivorship benefits if you were collecting off of an ex-spouse. So it doesn't just have to be somebody that you were currently married to, it could be a previous ex-spouse.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. One of the things that makes it even more challenging is the legislative changes as it relates to Social Security. 2016, there was a huge Social Security legislative change, which really makes it confusing because some people feel like the survivorship option isn't available anymore because there were spousal options that were completely eliminated for most people back in 2016. So there's just a lot of if-thens. We really need to investigate all of your different options as it relates to Social Security to make sure you are getting the biggest payment amount you can from that benefit.
You're taking a look at our succession checklist. You can download this checklist at successionchecklist.com. And let's go to the next thing on the checklist. It's taxes. It's a big part of what we do when we help people put together retirement plans. But then at the end of this retirement phase, when one of the spouse dies, there's some things you need to know about taxes.
Absolutely. Your tax brackets will change. So married filing jointly, you have a favorable tax bracket because you can realize a bunch more taxable income and be taxed at a lower rate. So for example, if we had Mr. and Mrs. Jones and they brought in $80,000 of taxable income, their tax rate would be 12% on that $80,000. But if Mr. Jones passed away and Mrs. Jones still needs that $80,000 worth of income to live her lifestyle, well, that's going to be taxed at 22%. So much higher tax rate. So if we can engage in tax planning strategies in the year that your spouse passes away and try to mitigate that tax bill for your upcoming future, you're going to long-term benefit from that.
And that's part of the reason with our married couples, we engage in tax planning as soon as we possibly can, because we talk all the time about how right now taxes are on sale. Eventually we feel like tax rates are going to go up, but we know in most circumstances when you file single versus filing married, your tax rates, your top marginal tax rate is going to increase based on that same level of income. So doing tax planning as soon as you possibly can, hopefully while you're both alive, can prevent a tax rate increase that is really steep once one of you does pass away.
And often a misconception when your spouse passes away is you think, hey, I don't need as much income as I once did when both of us were alive. But that's not necessarily true. For many families, they have this guaranteed income that is turned on and you can't turn it off. So one thing is RMDs and pension income. So if you're still delivering the same amount of income that you were when both of you were alive, well, now you're going to be paying more taxes on that, and it's only because your spouse passed away.
Yeah, and even just the lifestyle needs. I mean, there's certain basic needs that you have to pay for, whether it's one of you or two of you. And the other thing that we see when a spouse passes away, well, the surviving spouse, maybe they were in a bigger house that accommodated both their needs. Maybe it was in their family house when they had kids, but now there's one of you, and you may not want that big house, so then there's extra costs associated, especially in this housing market where downsizing isn't necessarily down pricing.
Oh, it's cheaper, yeah.
Yeah, right. So we do see some added expenses, even when it's just one of you, as opposed to when there was two of you, that we have to plan on and account for.
The next piece of the succession checklist is investments. Sometimes you need to change what title, beneficiaries, things like that.
Absolutely. So when your spouse passes away, they typically have beneficiaries set up on those accounts. And this is where a financial planner can be so much value, because this paperwork is just massive. You do not want to be doing all this paperwork by yourself. It's very easy to make a mistake when filling out that paperwork. But when your spouse passes, you have to change ownership of those accounts. So work with your financial planner, see how the beneficiaries are titled and listed, and let them help you take that burden off your plate so that they can help transfer those assets into your name in the most efficient way possible.
Okay, so we'll continue going through our succession checklist when Retiring Today continues.
The Merkle Retirement Planning Team provides personable and professional expertise unrivaled in this area. They include us in every step of the planning process. The peace of mind provided to us by the Merkle team allows us to fully enjoy this special time of our lives. Instead of feeling snakebit, we feel confident that with the Merkle Retirement Planning Team at our sides, we can navigate any challenge that comes our way.
Merkle Retirement Planning. Your retirement starts here.
Biking, boating, relaxation? What's your retirement vision? Learn how to take the money you've worked so hard to save and turn it into the retirement of your dreams during our Journey to Retirement workshop. Like getting ready for a trip, getting to and through retirement takes a roadmap. This workshop is the first step to planning your 20 or 30-year vacation. Go to retirewithmerkle.com to register for our Journey to Retirement workshop this week.
Welcome back to Retiring Today. We're going through our succession checklist. You can download the checklist at successionchecklist.com. So the checklist mirrors the retirement plans that you guys help people put together. So the next thing in the retirement plans is the healthcare aspect. But when you're facing the loss of a spouse or planning for the loss of a spouse, there's some healthcare tips to know about.
Yeah, and the good news is that if you are on Medicare, there's not a lot of changes because that's individual coverage through the program. So you just have to notify your insurance agent that your spouse is no longer there, and you would still continue your own coverage. But it's different if you're on employer coverage. So let's say your spouse held healthcare coverage for you and they did it through the employer. Well, then we may have to contact the employer and see what options we have to continue coverage.
And your employer, sometimes it's good to contact the employer. I think that was probably included in one of those first things where you talk about, talking to your professional network. Sometimes there is a life insurance benefit available to you through your spouse's work, right?
There could be. So that's why we say add it to your emergency contact list. If they're still working, call your employer because there could be possibly a 401k plan that you need to roll over, there could be health insurance that you need to cover, or there could be a life insurance policy that you're entitled to, and that's tax-free benefits. So definitely call the employer, see if there's any benefits that you're still entitled to.
Okay, next piece is the legacy plan. It's next up on the checklist. One of the first things you have under there, Haley, is to contact your attorney.
Contact your attorney because I don't know if you've ever read a trust document or a will.
I can't say that I have, but I know that you two have.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of legal jargon in it, and you should contact your attorney, sit down with them, and as the executor of the estate, know your role, and they're gonna help you with that. They're gonna help identify what roles you have in closing out the estate and help you through the legal process of moving forward and closing the estate.
Yeah, and they'll also help with that, with the beneficiary. So also contact your retirement planner. So this really is a combination effort between your attorney, your retirement planner, even your CPA should all be notified and work on behalf of you to make sure everything's taken care of. You mentioned the beneficiaries in the last segment. The beneficiaries need to be accounted for and changed when you go through this. So you contact your spouse's employer, but then also look at your employer plan. I remember distinctly there was a couple years ago that somebody came to us, his spouse had passed away 3 months prior, but she didn't have a beneficiary listed, and that happens actually quite a bit with an employer plan. And then this is 3 months later, and he still has not gained access to $1 million of their retirement money. So that the beneficiary change cannot be stressed enough. It is vitally important to make sure all that stuff is updated once a spouse passes away, and hopefully you look at it prior to anybody passing away.
And how often do we meet with families? And I remember this not too long ago, we met with a family, and what ended up happening was her husband passed away, and there were still accounts, they were both previously married, there were still accounts that were titled to the ex-spouse. And legally, they are entitled to those funds. So it's definitely important to update the beneficiaries. It's not always what we're often thinking about, but if your spouse passed away and they were 100% primary on your account, you're going to want to update that to either your children or the loved ones that you want to leave behind.
Yeah, which is why the beneficiary review is such a big part of our annual review process to make sure your beneficiaries that are selected are still the beneficiaries that you want going forward, so there are no surprises in the event that somebody does pass away. And as a part of your belongings, as a part of all the material that you have, right, all the stuff in the checklist we talked about, a beneficiary list, so basically all the accounts you have and who is the beneficiary, that should be in there as well. So you guys can review it on an ongoing basis and make sure everybody is aware when somebody passes away, here's what's going to happen to the money. Here's the order that it's going to go in, and it will transfer in the best way possible.
Okay, anything else with the legacy planner? Should we move on to kind of that last piece of the checklist? Haley, you ready for that?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have another category, and there's some interesting tips under your other category.
Sure. So one of the miscellaneous items is to contact one of the 3 major credit bureaus. And the reason why is you want to flag the deceased credit report to say they're deceased because fraud is so prevalent right now. Often what happens is people try to steal the identities of those who passed away. So if you contact one of the 3 major credit bureaus, they'll flag the credit report, and that will prevent fraud from happening in the future.
And veterans, there's a lot of benefits for even the spouses of veterans when they pass.
There are. So there's definitely benefits for veterans, and if you're interested to see if you're still entitled to those benefits as a spouse, you would want to contact the VA administration and see if you're entitled to any of the health care benefits or possibly a life insurance policy that's out there as well.
Okay, so you can download the checklist. Again, here's that website. It's successionchecklist.com. And if you're looking through it and you have questions, a good way to just start the conversation is to to call us. You can schedule a 15-minute complimentary retirement checkup call by going to merkleretire.com, and you can follow up with the retirement planners about any of the portions of the checklist or any questions you might have about starting retirement or your retirement vision. So let's talk about a place, though, if you've got questions. I like the option of a phone call, but some people maybe want to do something a little more passive. They want to maybe watch and learn, and then maybe follow up with some questions. And we've had this workbook on the table here for the last couple of minutes. It's a beautiful workbook, Loren. We just kind of got these all put together, and they're a really important piece of those workshops.
It sure is. We've been teaching that Journey to Retirement workshop for some time, and we're really happy we got this workbook. We've been working on this workbook for a while, and now it's all ready to go, and it plays really well in with that Journey to Retirement workshop. The whole workshop, what we do is we take you through the retirement process through the eyes of a hypothetical couple, John and Sue. They have some very specific goals that they're trying to accomplish in their retirement, a lot of the fun stuff that's involved in the lifestyle plan. And then we show you how they accomplish those goals through implementing some of these financial strategies. What does their income plan look like? Where are they going to get the money? How much money do they need? How do they make these income decisions with Social Security to make sure that they don't run out of money before they run out of time, and they make these decisions with confidence? Some of the strategies or some of the goals that John and Sue have may not reflect your goals because everybody's lifestyle is a little bit different. Your goals might be a little bit different, but you can take some strategies out of the workshop and implement almost immediately to help you achieve your retirement goals. So we go over the income plan, the tax plan, the healthcare plan, the lifestyle plan, the investment, as well as the legacy plan, all throughout that workshop. And this workbook gives you some an actionable way to take notes and to see some of this stuff in a visual way that we go through the workshop.
And what I love about the workshop is that it really gives you a taste of what it means to have a retirement plan. Because there's all these decisions or questions that you don't know until you start approaching retirement, and now you're knocking on the doors of retirement and you're wondering, what am I going to do? How am I going to get paid in retirement? So going through this journey with a hypothetical question really starts to get your mind thinking and starts to understand what it means to really have a retirement plan.
And it is a complimentary workshop, so it doesn't cost you anything, and you will take away a ton of information that you can implement to make better and more confident decisions.
Yeah, and though we've had to tackle a tough subject today, we do try to make the workshop kind of fun, and we try to make the couple, they have some fun objectives about golfing and traveling and things like that, because really, retirement is fun. We know that most of the parts of retirement are going to be fun, so we call it the Journey to Retirement because it's your vacation. It's your 30-year vacation. It's in a very exciting time. So when you sign up for the workshop using the website you see on your screen right now, you'll get a whole kit. It's a fun little travel kit with a travel theme, and this workbook is included in that kit, and then you also, of course, get all the information for how to attend the workshop. So, Loren, you've heard this said many times. People attend it and they say to you, man, I learned a lot.
And they didn't know what they didn't know, and what they learned throughout the workshop can really help them on their way. There's so much anxiety that can come with this major life change. So you want to make things easy, you want to make things simple. Information is a big part of helping this process, this transition, be a lot more simpler. And so it says we have a lot of fun. Usually there's 3 of us on the workshop going through the different principles, the different components of the plan, and you'll take a lot out of that within a very short period of time.
We hope you take a lot out of this show too. It's retiring today, and we thank you for watching.